It is now my privilege to introduce our commencement speaker, Ambassador Richard Verma, a Lehigh alumnus from the class of 1990 and former U.S. Ambassador to India. As Vice Chairman of the Washington, D.C.-based the Asia Group, he continues to forge partnerships by guiding U.S. and multinational corporations operating in Asia. Ambassador Verma came to Lehigh on an Air Force ROTC scholarship, earning a Bachelor of Science degree in Industrial Engineering with a minor in International Relations. While serving in the military, he earned his law degree from American University and his Master of Law from Georgetown University. He later served as the Air Force Judge Advocate and received both the Meritorious Service and Air Force Commendation Medals. After completing his tour of duty, Ambassador Verma joined the global law firm of Steptoe and Johnson and specialized in national security law, international trade, and public policy. Asked to serve his country again, he left the firm as a partner and began more than a 2-decade-long career shaping U.S. foreign policy. The distinguished positions he has held in government include Senior National Security Advisor to the Senate Majority Leader, Commissioner to the Prevention of Weapons of Mass Destruction and Terrorism, Assistant Secretary of State for Legislative Affairs, and a member of the Secretary of State's Foreign Affairs Policy Board. Those qualifications prepared Rich well for serving in his next position as the 25th U.S. Ambassador to India, the first Indian American to do so. Ambassador Verma oversaw one of the largest diplomatic operations in the world. Forbes magazine called him one of the most consequential envoys ever to occupy this prestigious post. This assessment is all the more impressive when one considers that Ambassador Verma's predecessors included such legendary public servants as John Kenneth Galbraith and Thomas Pickering. 2 years as ambassador, they have been described as transformational in U.S.-India relations, deepening bilateral engagement in every sphere, including defense, trade, and climate change. While ambassador, Rich was instrumental in identifying opportunities that expanded Lehigh's global footprint in India, which included establishing a new student exchange with Ashoka University just north of New Delhi. He also strengthened the ties amongst the Lehigh community in India and hosted a marquee event at the United States Embassy in New Delhi to share Lehigh's mission to expand its presence in the country. Ambassador Verma has faithfully served Lehigh since his undergraduate days as class president, a role he continued as an alumnus. He has also served on the Lehigh University Alumni Association Board of Directors and is now an appointed member of the university's Board of Trustees. Rich has been widely honored for his commitment and accomplishments in public service and received the Chief Justice John Marshall Lifetime Achievement Award from the Judge Advocates Foundation. Honored by Lehigh in 2016, he received the Industrial Systems Engineering Distinguished Alumni Award in Excellence in Industry. We are truly privileged to have this esteemed ambassador, public servant, and loyal alumnus with us today. Please join me in welcoming our 2019 commencement speaker, Ambassador Richard Verma.
Well, Kevin, thank you for that warm introduction. President Simon, members of the Board of Trustees, faculty, family, friends, and especially the class of 2019. You made it. Congratulations. Now, some of you may have seen the news yesterday that a very distinguished commencement speaker at Morehouse College, Mr. Robert Smith, pledged to pay off the college loan debt of the Morehouse graduating class of 2019. I want to make an announcement along a similar lines here today, but that won't be happening here at Lehigh. But we are seeing if Mr. Smith is available to be next year's commencement speaker. But it was an extraordinary, generous commitment. And speaking of generosity, let me say a word about our terrific chairman of the Board of Trustees, Kevin Clayton. Kevin and his family have given their all to this university. And I'll just tell you, when I was being sworn in as ambassador, there was a ceremony at the State Department presided over by the Secretary of State. It was a nerve-wracking, tense, uncertain time. And when I looked out into the audience, there were hundreds of people there, and right in the third row, there was Kevin. Kevin was giving me that nod, saying, "Come on, you can do this." And when I looked behind Kevin, when I looked to the right and left, and when I looked in front of Kevin, there was a team of people from Lehigh there. And I remember thinking to myself, who invited them, and how did they get through security? No, seriously, it was a reassuring moment and a reminder of how much this school looks out for, supports its graduates, not only today, but well into the future. So thank you, Kevin, for all that you do each day for Lehigh. I had arrived at Lehigh for freshman orientation in August of 1986. I moved into M&M B3. As Kevin noted, I was in Air Force ROTC. I played ice hockey. I pledged a house. I studied abroad. I majored in industrial engineering. And I had a double minor, one in international relations and one in beer pong. Some cheers for the beer pong department. The beer pong minor has not benefited me as much as I had hoped. Now, years after I graduated from Lehigh, my dad told me that my mom cried the whole way home after dropping me off freshman year. She was so proud of you, my dad told me, but also so sad that you were growing up and moving out and on to college. My mother's experience probably wasn't that unique, so to the parents, grandparents, family, and friends that are gathered here, this is a day to recognize all of you as well, so let's give all the family members and friends here a big round of applause. Now, your tuition payments are finally coming to an end as well, so perhaps there are tears of joy out there today, too. And to the faculty and staff, we thank you and congratulate you for helping to mold and train this exceptional graduating class. I know you have prepared them to lead, to question, and to help others. I'm also sure every day was not easy, but I know you will be watching them proudly as they get ready to embark on a new chapter in their lives. And to the class of 2019, I'm sure a few of you were up past your bedtime last night and may have even done some celebrating. Some of you may still be celebrating. But we are so proud of you and excited for you. Today is your day. Now, I should tell you, when my friends found out I was giving this address, I started to receive some rather unsolicited suggestions and emails pointing me towards the best commencement addresses ever given. Steve Jobs at Stanford, J.K. Rowling at Harvard, Ellen DeGeneres at Tulane, Oprah, Conan. The emails and suggestions just kept coming, enough to really stress you out. But I was heartened, I think, when one of my close friends said, "Don't worry, no one will ever remember a word you say anyway." So with that advice in mind, and knowing that I stand between you and your diplomas, I will try to keep this brief. Now, a lot of people ask me, what was it like being ambassador? Did it go to your head? All the pomp and circumstance, the fancy title, the diplomatic residence, and so much more. And each day, I would tell myself to stay grounded, stay true to that kid who grew up in Western Pennsylvania in Johnstown and went to college in Bethlehem. I'd like to believe I was successful, but I have to tell you, that kid from Johnstown was never far from the spectacle, the lights, and the glory. There was, for example, the time when I was scheduled to meet His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. the renowned global spiritual leader who lives in India. I will never forget the date and time of that meeting, February 6th at 8 a.m. New Delhi local time. Now, why did I remember that so clearly? Because it was the start of the fourth quarter of Super Bowl 51, which, if you will recall, included the greatest Super Bowl comeback of all time, with the Patriots scoring 25 points in the final quarter and into overtime. Just for the record, I am a Steelers fan, but... Now, I recall asking my wife, I said, "Can I miss a meeting with the Dalai Lama to watch the Super Bowl?" "Only if you want to get struck down by lightning," she said. Then my 9-year-old son piped up. He said, "Dad, maybe the Dalai Lama is watching the game." Now, this gave me new hope. Yes, perhaps the Dalai Lama was watching the Super Bowl in the suite where I was meeting with him. So I was checking the score repeatedly on the way over, hitting refresh on my phone. Oh my gosh, what a game. I'm going to watch the final minutes with the Dalai Lama. This is going to be great. I was escorted into his large ceremonial room where, yes, there was a big and beautiful flat-screen TV hanging just above where the Dalai Lama was seated. And the TV was off. Right then, you are confronted with one of those kids from Pennsylvania moments where your football-watching roots are begging you to ask the Dalai Lama to turn on the Super Bowl, while your more refined State Department diplomatic training is demanding that you maintain the dignity of the office. Well, on that day, I'm happy to report I never did watch the game. I missed the fourth quarter, and in the end, I thankfully did not embarrass all of you or the nation at large. But I want to tell you, it was a close call, a really close call. Now, in all seriousness, serving as ambassador was the honor of a lifetime. And I suspect my Indian parents still wished I had gone to medical school and become a doctor, but ambassador was an okay landing spot. I will tell you, one of the most moving experiences was to go back to the villages where my parents were raised so many years ago. I visited the one-room flat where my mom and grandmother lived following the partition that divided India and Pakistan. I went to the school where my grandmother taught in a very poor area of Punjab in a girls' school. Thousands of people came out to greet me. Uncles and aunties came up to me. They squeezed my cheeks and told me how my mom and grandma had put them on the right path, and without their guidance, they would not have been where they were today. I also visited my dad's college, delivered the commencement address there, and saw where he studied. He likes to talk about his arrival in the U.S. in 1963 with only a few dollars and a bus ticket. My mom and dad worked so hard, and the fact that I could go back to the country of my roots 50 years later to represent the United States was such a long shot. But it was also a very American story, an immigrant story. And they say you don't know where you're going in life until you know where you came from. Well, I was so lucky to fully see and understand where I had come from. My parents would eventually become U.S. citizens, and I will never forget how proud they were to become citizens while also maintaining their roots and cultural traditions from India. It was an important reminder that our diversity is our strength. It gives us unique advantages in the world. When I was serving in the military and overseas with the State Department, I was so inspired to meet so many soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Foreign Service officers who were not born in this country and who did not speak English as their first language. Yet they decided to devote their lives to serving and protecting the United States, the country that welcomed them. This is a vision of America that must endure. It's a vision that allows me, an immigrant, a naturalized citizen, and a veteran, to stand before you today. Now, 29 years ago, I stood right here and delivered the commencement address as senior class president. I recall experiencing many of the same feelings as I do today: excitement, nervousness, and of course, complete panic that I might pass out while delivering my remarks. When I think back to that day, I remember speaking about the dizzying amount of change that our class had experienced while at Lehigh, both on campus and around the world. If you recall, in the summer of 1990, the U.S. stood at the top of the world's pecking order. We had just won the Cold War after a long and dangerous decades-long standoff with the Soviet Union. We were unchallenged, unmatched, and uncontested. Around the globe, Cold War-era walls were falling and democracy was in full bloom, seemingly everywhere. We presumed those times would continue. And here on campus, too, the changes were coming at us swiftly, with what we thought at the time was a real crackdown on our social life and our way of life. I understand some of you may have felt a similar set of changes here, too. Now, in 1990, the cost of a gallon of gas was $1.15. A movie ticket was $4. Smartphones and social media platforms did not yet exist. Home Alone was the #1 film at the box office, and Cheers was the top-ranked TV show. Madonna and New Kids on the Block were breaking records on tour. There were still 2 spaces after a period. And Game of Thrones was still nearly 30 years away from disappointing us. Now, you graduate from Lehigh today with unprecedented opportunities, with a remarkably different landscape from 1990. You entered Lehigh as one of the smartest classes we've ever had, shattering all records in your SAT scores, GPA, and class ranking. It is a pretty safe bet that I would have never been admitted here. You've accomplished so much on the athletic field, on campus, and literally around the world, studying in dozens of countries, and you've attracted a more global student body than ever before. But you have also inherited from us a range of real challenges. The U.S. is no longer the dominant and unchallenged world power. We face new and real competition from rising powers. We have either been unable or unwilling to stop the planet from warming. And we've seen an increase in authoritarian, nationalist, and populist regimes across the globe. And of course, we are facing real and deeply polarizing divisions right here at home. So the changes I talked about in 1990 have kept going at an incredible pace. And most of it has been exceedingly positive, but much of it has been deeply concerning. It's a cliche to say the time has gone by fast, but it has. My journey over these past 29 years has taken me around the world and back again, getting the chance to visit and work in dozens of nations, seeing our troops in combat zones and our aid workers in Africa and South Asia. It has been a roller coaster. I never thought I would be standing here again, but you've given me this great honor and opportunity to look back, think about Lehigh in my own life and what I learned and how it might be relevant to all of you. Boiling it down was tough, but here are 3 quick lessons I learned along my journey. First, I learned that the U.S. has a special and unique role to play in the world, and Americans are having a big impact. Now, I appreciate that for much of your upbringing, you've seen America perhaps in a different light, embroiled in seemingly endless conflicts. U.S. troops have been in Afghanistan for nearly as long as you have been alive. It's understandable if you would take a different view. All I can tell you is what I've seen. I've seen your government do heroic things overseas, provide critical aid after disasters, defend democracies under siege, help rebuild war-torn societies. At our embassy and consulates in India, I witnessed every agency of our government hard at work, often in difficult conditions. And it's not just our troops and diplomats having an impact abroad. Ordinary Americans, teachers, retirees, health professionals, and students like you are working in schools and medical clinics and development projects, often living in remote villages, and they are having a big impact. I met 2 young women from the Midwest who had started a garment business to employ the victims of human trafficking. I met a young engineer who designed a new solar pump to aid farmers in drought-distressed districts. I met energetic young Americans bringing baseball and basketball to impoverished areas with no access, let alone exposure to sports. These were innovators. They were young, ready, and willing to make a difference, just like all of you. And they are part of an even broader and longer legacy. We are approaching the 75th anniversary of what would most call the decisive battle of World War II, if not the 20th century, the Battle of Normandy, or D-Day, on June 6, 1944. On that day, some 175,000 troops fought courageously to begin what would become the end of Hitler's Nazi regime. As Stephen Ambrose writes in his great account of the battle, quote, "It all came down to a bunch of 18 to 28-year-olds. Only a few had ever been in combat. They were citizen soldiers, not professionals. They were soldiers of democracy, and to them we owe our freedom." Many of those 18 to 28-year-olds were part of this Lehigh family. Dozens of graduates and faculty served in the Normandy invasion. The U.S. and our allies made enormous sacrifices. As one Lehigh alum who took part in the battle would say years later, "We left the real heroes on the beach. They're still there." So as your generation sets out to find the right balance for the U.S. role in the world, I would ask that you not forget about the good we have done and continue to do in different corners of the planet. You will have the opportunity to chart America's course in this century, and I hope you will draw upon the best of our traditions, the big hearts of our people, with the humility and responsibility that comes with power, and recognize that we are stronger when we stay engaged and work together with others on the problems that confront us. And that leads me to the second lesson I learned, and that is we are so much better off working together with our friends and allies than working alone. The problems you are inheriting cannot be solved by any one country. Climate change, pandemics, cyber attacks, terrorism, keeping our seas free and open, and so much more requires us to work together and treat our friends and partners with respect. This will require empathy, understanding, and reminding ourselves that history did not start yesterday, and that the map we studied growing up in grade school, depicting the United States at the center with all the other countries on the edges, is not actually how the world works. 60% of the world's population and 2/3 of the world's global economic growth comes from Asia alone. We can't cut ourselves off from the rest of the world. Isolation and retrenchment are not options. As you set out to do more globally, we cannot ignore how our internal divisions are hampering us overseas. As you well know, our country seems more and more polarized. We are divided by seemingly everything these days, by our political camps, by social and economic groupings, by geography, by those who went to college and those who did not. The list goes on, and it seems like the rift is only getting wider, with political leaders seeking to incite and exploit our divisions for electoral gain, blaming others, and degrading our national discourse. The world is not waiting for us to get our act together. Countries, both adversaries and allies, are sensing this is their moment, surprised that the U.S. is playing small ball as we attack each other. They are more than willing to fill the gap. We have to do better. And remember that there is so much more that unites us than sets us apart. Class of 2019, the world is at your fingertips. You're going to eradicate diseases like tuberculosis and malaria. You're going to put an astronaut on Mars. You're going to have an energy surplus for the first time in our history. And you're going to make this a more just and inclusive society. So don't get sidetracked. Reject the noise. Stand up for what you believe in. And do so with the humanity, heart, grace, and respect for others, both here at home and abroad. Now, what you'll notice as you depart from here today is that the days will go by quickly, as will the months and years. Soon you will be looking back on 3 decades with some combination of hope and nostalgia, as I am today. When we look back, the metrics of success will come in all forms: money, professional advancement, property, fame, and notoriety. But I'd encourage you to think about one more way to measure your success, and that is, ask yourself a simple but powerful question. What did you do to live a life of service and to serve others? What I have learned, and this is my third and final point, is that the most meaningful barometer of success will be whether you were there for others when they needed a hand. Did you speak up for those whose voices were not being heard? Did you stand up against an unfairness, an injustice, or the way someone was being treated? What did you do to contribute to your community, to your school, your church, your family, to the environment, or a worthy public cause? Were you part of something larger than yourself? You might be thinking to yourself, well, I'm not going to go live abroad like you did or enter government service, and that's perfectly fine. You can be very successful in the private sector while also leading a life of service. The great Eleanor Roosevelt used to say that the real battle for social justice and equality are, quote, in the small spaces close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world, yet they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood he lives in, the school or college he attends, the factory, farm, or office where he works. Such are the places where every man and woman seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity without discrimination. My only point is you don't have to go too far or enter public service in order to serve others. Think of those small spaces close to home. You can have a great impact there. So when the joy and celebration of this day passes, when the clicks, the likes, and the posts from our social media feeds go quiet, when this stadium stands empty, when you are alone, asking yourself years from now, did I make a difference? Am I living a good life? Have I served others? Was I there when my family, my friends, or my community needed me? I know that answer will be yes. That's what Lehigh has prepared you to do. Now, a few people have asked me whether I would have said anything differently in my 1990 graduation speech, knowing what I know now. Well, I would have said a proper thank you to Lehigh, the faculty and staff, for the incredible education I received. I would have told my class to enjoy the ride, really and truly, because it will go by fast. And I would have said to my mom that she didn't have to cry all the way home, because Lehigh was going to take good care of me during my 4 years and well into the future. And I say the same to all of you, the graduating class of 2019. Enjoy the ride. We are so proud of you, and we are here for you today and for years into the future. Good luck and congratulations.